Welcome back, everybody, to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. I'm Thomas Aaronsburg.
And I'm Catherine Aaronsburg.
And we got a fun one for you today. We're going to talk about raising children.
You know who always has the most number of answers for your child rearing needs? People who don't have children.
Of course.
Those are the people who know everything about
because
having
they are
children.
strictly observers. They can just watch from the outside.
And then you get into it and you drown. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know what I was talking about. It's interesting, isn't it? And then suddenly you don't want to give advice to anybody.
Yeah, as a parent, the worst thing you can do as a parent is give advice to other parents.
I really think that's the only people who give advice are either people who have never had children or had them so long ago that they're just, I don't know if they're itching to give advice.
I think they gloss over their experience.
Oh my gosh. If I had a nickel for the amount of people who would pass by me and be like, you're going to miss this when it's gone. And I'm like,
it can be gone right now if you take my children from me.
I'm like, please just let me go into the store by myself without roll. I mean, I've got pictures of like so many kids in a shopping cart. I couldn't fit a box of mac and cheese if I wanted. Like, I really needed two shops.
Especially at these new age grocery stores, they give you the little buggy. Like, I can't fit any kids in there.
Those little mini buggies that have like.
I need that Costco double seater.
That's right.
They know what they're doing over there. They're feeding families. All right, so we're going to start with something that we kind of discovered after we started having children.
Shocker.
And it was the thought that there's never a good time to have children. If we were sitting down and making our life plan,
there'd be no babies.
There wouldn't have been.
There wouldn't
have been a time to be like, okay, right now we are where we are with our careers and our house projects, and now let's have children.
No way.
I mean, maybe when we were 65.
Yeah.
It's like we've done everything else. Let's try the old children thing.
No, it never would have happened. And children were always part of our marriage plan. We always wanted kids.
Right, but when?
Yeah, we never talked about when and, how long. Now, being from an old Catholic family like we are, they start asking you when you're going to start having babies like the day you get married. And you're like, can you just give me a minute? Just a minute.
If you don't have one within like 9 months of when you're married, they're like, what are y'all doing?
Time's a ticking. Clock's a ticking.
Yeah.
You guys, clock's a ticking. So.
But there's two reasons why people think that. And the first reason is that kids are so expensive. How are we going to pay for them? Even just one. How are you going to pay for them? To feed them, to clothe them, eventually to send them to school. If you choose to send them to school.
I am of the feeling that children aren't that expensive. Babies are not that expensive, but babies. Now, they start getting into school, that can get expensive. Of course, I always nurse the kids. That's free. It's a good diet plan, too. Formula can add up very quickly, for sure, if you're in a formula need. But as far as the needs of a baby, to be fed and diapers, those are it. They don't need all these crazy toys. They've got all these YouTube videos now. I don't know if you guys have seen them where they put a baby toy and they put two things at the same time in front of a baby sitting in a high chair. It's a baby toy and like a remote or like any other household thing. Mm-hmm. They go for the non-toy every single time.
Yeah.
Every time. So babies don't need much. People think you need a swing and all these like they've had so many more things since we've had babies with all the revolution.
Even since we were kids. I mean, I think when we were kids,
my gosh,
you had
you were like in a cage.
You had the walker.
The rolling walker that like would fly downstairs.
You probably had a swing of some sort, and then you had some sort of caging device that
like a baby gate for sure.
Yeah.
Contain the baby. That's
but
number
even
one.
When we were having babies, there were like all different kinds of swings.
Yeah.
There were different things you could sit them in that would shake or make noise.
1,000 different kinds of bottles.
Oh, yeah. Every single kind of bottle that exists.
And of course, the baby has to try it out to see if they like it because babies don't like all the things. So then you end up with like 10 different swings. I don't know. You just borrow all that stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, we found ways to do it for cheap. We borrowed stuff. We have brothers and sisters that had babies before us. So we had access to clothes.
Yeah. Which I feel like secondhand clothes are abundant. And I shopped at thrift stores and
because kids grow so fast. I mean, there'll be some, depending on how, when your kids hit their little growth spurts, but your kids might only being size 2T for a
Our
few
babies
months.
never grow out of clothes.
Cecilia's probably still in a 2T, and
She's
she's almost
6.
6 years old.
The other thing too is that we did not care, even with the first baby, I did not care about having everything just so, like
Mhm.
our second baby was a boy and he was in a pink swing. I just didn't care.
I do remember when we bought stuff for the first one, we tried to get
Neutral.
kind of neutrally
Yeah.
colors
Yeah.
because we thought that we might be having more than one and they may not all be girls.
Yeah. So in other words, practicality
Right.
always reigned.
So we had a
number
lot of,
one.
I think the chair was like brown
tan
or
or
tan
something.
or something. Yeah, I mean,
I
it
don't
was
know.
kind of a neutral color.
A rocking chair. You buy all these things. I think it's a lot like, we talked about in previous episodes where you make plans for your kitchen or whatever before you move in. You do all this renovation and then you're like, oh, shoot, we shouldn't have done that because now we don't use it that way. I think it's the same thing with babies. I know it sounds crazy because pregnant mamas, we nest. We have to have all the things. Everything has to be just so before the baby gets there. Or else you feel like you're a chaotic mess and you're not prepared. But there's some things that the baby really might not use or you might not use. You think you're going to use them and then you might not use them.
There were
because
a
you're
lot of
just-
things I feel like that
Yeah.
were like that we got, and I mean, maybe used them one time, and either the baby doesn't like it, like you try to use it, and you think it's something that's supposed to stop the baby from crying. You give it to them, they never stop crying.
In general, they are in diapers and naked, that soft baby skin. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I
and they have
do.
those little wrinkles in their back.
They got wrinkles everywhere. They got wrinkles in their knees,
So
the front of their
cute.
knee.
They got that little velvety skin.
Yeah.
And ours had so much hair when they were born. They just had this little like baby wigs.
Yeah, little grown up babies. So, I guess to sum it up, babies can be expensive if you're very
If you-
particular about certain things, and
Yeah, that's everything, right?
right.
Everything
I mean,
adds
there's
up if you're
there's
super picky about
definitely
it.
very cheap ways to own a baby.
Own a baby.
Yeah,
That's
to
not
get
right.
one.
To get you
To
a baby.
get you a baby.
I mean, look, this is a tough subject because there's always hospital things involved,
Sure.
medical things. People don't have medical insurance, possibly. I mean, we are not talking about.
That could be scary. Obviously, if and maybe you're not in a position if that's the case.
It does add up. It's true. It does. But I have to say, we found a way. I stayed home with the kids. I wasn't making that much money, and you're a teacher.
Right.
So, what do you think you were making back then? Maybe like $35,000 a year when you first started?
Yeah. I mean, I would have been a second year teacher.
I mean, if we really want to get down to talking numbers here, you probably made $35,000 a year, and I probably made less than 10 just piddling around doing,
Right. Selling your baby onesies.
Yeah,
and,
just doing jobs for landscape architects in town and
Right.
CAD jobs and whatever. I wasn't making that much money, but it was great to just set it aside. Now we've always worked to kind of increase our money by selling things on Craigslist back then and selling things on Facebook Marketplace.
There's hidden income in all of that for
right,
sure.
Right.
But on paper, you're right. It's probably
So if we can do it for $40,000-ish a year,
Mhm.
I feel like, and of course there's people who are making much less money than that, but I feel like you can do it. So if you're talking about starting to build a family, money is not usually, isn't everything the fear of the unknown? Everything is fear of the
Yes.
unknown. I mean, we're sitting here talking about all this stuff when the fact of the matter truly is you're afraid of something. You're
right.
afraid
And
that
you're finding excuses.
you're afraid that you won't be a good mom or dad. You're afraid that you can't afford it. You're afraid, I don't know, fear. I do so many things or don't do so many things out of fear. So, and that would have been the reason why we didn't have babies and we had babies anyway, It just happened. Because again, we didn't know what we were doing.
No, we didn't. But let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about our parenting. Welcome back to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. So the next thing we have is we have to make sure that we are on the same page and demonstrating a unified front, or else the enemy,
Okay,
our children, will divide and conquer us.
Yeah, they will.
And the most obvious place this happens is with discipline. If they know that one of us is a softie, they know who to go to when it's time for dessert. Do we get dessert tonight?
Let me tell you who the softie is. Papa.
Oh, for
Papa's this.
sure. That's different. I can't even wait to be a grandparent. I'm telling you, I cannot even wait.
Is it going to be payback time?
For Cecilia, for sure. She has my dad wrapped around her little finger.
Yeah.
And yes, when she has children, if she has children, and they come to me, they're getting anything.
Anything and everything.
Anything they want.
Hmm.
Because she knows exactly how to work around us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny, my dad sent this Facebook meme or something to me. I don't know, maybe it was a text message. It said, the reason that children and their grandparents get along so well is because they have a common enemy.
Yeah. Mom and dad.
Which is us, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Thanks. That's so nice.
Totally true. But yeah, between the two parents, if they know one of them is a softie and they know that one of them's always going to give them everything and the other one's going to be the no person, then they know who to go to.
It's hard to be the no person all the time. I am the no person.
I'm the no person a lot too.
Yeah. I guess so.
I think where they get you is when, and this probably, if you have children, this happens. You know it happens. Mom, can I have dessert? No. Go find Dad in the other room who didn't hear this conversation. Dad, can we have dessert? And again, if you're not on the same page, and this is not something that you already kind of, like, we don't discuss dessert every night.
Right.
But we have a general, no, you're not having dessert unless it's like a special occasion or it's Sunday.
Look, it all comes down to you being not lazy and getting up from wherever you are, playing on your phone, and the kid comes ask you while you're distracted for you to
Yes.
walk in the other
That's
room
the best
and
time
ask
to hit them up.
and ask your partner, what did you tell that kid?
Right.
Yes or no?
Well, a lot of
And then
times you
proceed
just,
from
I mean,
there.
if you just ask the kid, what did Mama say?
Mm.
You know when your kids are lying to you. Like, they just have that.
If you're paying attention, I
That's
think we're
true.
distracted. I mean,
That's true.
that is my number one issue right now is that I'm distracted. So being distracted leads you to not paying attention, and it kind of leads to obviously bad discipline or fuzzy discipline. You're just like, yeah, whatever you want, kid. But being distracted also leads you to be being frustrated, which that's not what we're getting. We're talking about you giving in to your child when they want something, I guess. But it also leads you to snap at kids, which I'm terrible at. I'll be reading something on my phone or whatever. I'm distracted.
In the middle of writing an email.
Yeah, I'm distracted in some way. It's always a computer thing with me. Always, which is terrible. And they'll come and ask you something and I'll snap at them. It's like if I had not been doing that email or doing that task, I would have been much more calm with them. And so, I just, it's something I have to focus on because I think it does change the way that you,
yeah, but
your
at
entire
the same
interaction
time,
with
I
your
do
kid.
think that, and you do a really good job of this. I don't, but I've learned from you to start doing a good job of this. The kids need to learn how to come into the room and read the room and see that the adults are busy or the adults are talking. And I can't just barge in there and start letting everybody know what I got to say or what I need.
Sure, that's
so when they come in
though.
and they see that you are in the middle of doing something on your computer, whether it's writing an email or, I mean, if you're watching something on TikTok, although they usually can hear it and they come running into the room so they can watch with you. But let's say you're doing something on your phone.
Yeah.
They don't know what you're doing on their phone. They need to learn to walk in and read what's going on with you.
But then
before
likewise,
they just
I need to
jump in
learn
there.
that if I'm not doing something important to put it down.
Sure.
Because that doesn't happen often
Sure.
enough. I'll fully admit that does not happen often enough.
And that's probably that's a growing problem in our society.
It is.
That as adults we are much more distracted.
Yeah, and I'll say that you and I have not had smartphones that long in comparison to
Right.
most people. We got them relatively
Really, we got
late.
them for your business, I think, because
Yeah.
you needed. I think maybe you wanted to start doing more social media stuff, and you needed the phone to be able to post things. And I didn't. I had no need, and
Yeah.
really, I still have hardly any need for a smartphone. But
Yeah.
when nowadays with cell phones,
You just
just
get
when you
one.
get the plan, like
Right.
everyone's gonna have data, you may
Right.
as well.
You have to make a concerted effort to not get a smartphone these days.
Right. Yes, for sure. And so that just leads to people just being more distracted.
Now, speaking of that is a rule that we have, and we haven't really discussed a specific age yet, but our children do not have cell phones.
Right.
Which
we
is-
have a
which is
third
like-
phone, which is the kid's phone that they'll use very rarely. I mean, if
It
they
stays at home.
right,
It
it
stays
does
at
not go to
home.
school with them.
Right. It's basically like our house phone. It acts as our house phone.
Right,
So sometimes you and I will go on walks together, whatever the kids are home, they'll,
be
have
able
the
to call us in
right.
case we're not, or if we're taking too long or
Right.
whatever. Well, let's go ahead and take a break there, and when we come back, we got a couple other things that we'll talk about. Welcome back to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. For this last segment, we want to talk about, because this podcast is kind of about business and raising kids and all the things. One thing I think that we don't do a great job of, although I think we do a good job of it personally, we just don't do a good job kind of passing it down to our children, is teaching them about money and how to budget their money and when to save it, when to spend it, and those kind of things.
We teach them how to make money. They're very entrepreneurial. They're always trying to sell. If you live in our neighborhood, an Aaronsburg child has been to your door knocking on it trying to sell you something. They're extremely entrepreneurial.
Or if you've just driven up the
Our
main
street.
drag here, they're usually posted up there on any given Saturday peddling something
Satsumas or something.
that they have found.
So they're very entrepreneurial. They want to make money. They want to earn money. And then they go and put it in their wallets, which is exactly what we do. I mean, it's
Right.
exactly what we do. Although that's not exactly what we do as far as in true, like that is what they see us do.
Right.
They see us get our money, a check or whatever. They see us go to the bank. We put it into the bank. That is what they see.
And that's all they see.
They don't see the automatic deposit to the church. They don't see, or withdrawal or whatever you want to call it. They don't see, the 401k or whatever the retirement accounts are. Like they don't see that.
Right.
And so
Really, we don't see that either. I mean, we set it up years ago,
yeah,
and it just every month it just takes money out, and we don't pay much attention to it.
right. But that's a choice that we made. That they have no conscious.
Yeah, and we really haven't even talked to them about that. I mean, when we go to mass on Sundays, one of our children brings his wallet and likes to put the dollar
Yeah, which is
in the
great. It's
collection.
like, oh my gosh, where'd he learn that from? Because it wasn't me.
Right, I
Like,
didn't show him how to do that.
yeah. The one thing, Thomas, that you do is that you teach this. He teaches math, which I don't know if we've ever talked about that before. We talked about your football coaching. I think you
Yeah.
talked about you being a mathematician in the past, but
I did. Yeah.
he also teaches math. And part of your just something that you chose to do was to teach your high school students general budgeting, personal finance is what you
Mhm.
call it, which is everything from choosing a job. Take us through the process a little bit, like pretty
So-
basically.
Yeah, I mean, very quickly, we talk first about how you make money, the different ways you make money, and then kind of what you should do with your money in terms of putting it in a bank or keeping it in your sock drawer. Then from there, we turn to how are we spending our money, and the first thing we talk about is investing the money,
Mm-hmm.
saving it for your future or investing it in different kind of ways, and then how do you actually pay for practical things,
A mortgage.
a mortgage, buying
Car
a car.
payment, yeah.
By the end of the year, the very last one we do is paying for college, which is kind of a hot button issue nowadays.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's very, it's very
I teach
realistic to
I
them.
teach at a private school. 97 or something % of our graduates go to college in
Mhm.
some way. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
all 4-year universities, but
And
a big chunk of them do.
I bet a large percentage of their parents are paying for college too,
Probably, but I would bet it's not all of them.
which makes it more and more and more likely that they don't understand finances because there's
Right.
someone else taking care of them at all
Yes.
times.
Just like our children. I mean, they probably see their parents spending money. They see their parents earning money, saving money, putting it in the bank. But then how much money do they have, and how much how much does college cost? How much does a car
Right.
cost?
Right.
They probably have no idea.
No perspective on that. I mean, I know our kids have come to us and wanting a cell phone before, which is an absolute no. But we always say, do you know how much a cell phone costs to
Right.
buy, let alone the
The
monthly
monthly payment, yes.
on that? Like at the lowest $40 or something like that for the payment after you've paid for the phone.
Right, which
So-
is several $100s.
Oh, 100. I mean, whatever. I could get onto that tangent too about how expensive cell phones are. But
Right.
so you got all this money coming out. It's like, where are you going to earn $40 a month? And is it worth it? Is a cell phone so important to you that you're basically willing to work all the amount of time that you can work in order to pay for this thing so that you can, I don't
Call
know,
people.
call people? Is it that
Really,
important?
it's more about the social media than it is the calling
Our kids
people.
don't have social media.
No, but for
So
high
even if they
school
had
and
their own
college age
phone,
kids,
sure. So even if they had our kids, if they had their own phones, they wouldn't
yeah,
even
I
be on
don't
social
know.
media. They'd be
Right,
texting people. Like they wouldn't be doing anything more than what they're doing now,
correct,
calling and texting their friends, other than it would be theirs.
right.
So
And
anyway,
there's probably a lot of, just like anything. I mean, I think adults are more guilty of this than even kids are. Is that all of your friends have one, and so you want one?
sure.
And for people our age, it's houses and cars. For people their age, it's cell phones and clothes or something.
Now, I will say the one thing that we've really tried to instill in our children from the very start is a consideration for other people as far as if someone's bullying you at school, why do you feel like they're doing that? Like, where do you think that comes from?
Hmm.
Same thing with that kind of thing. Um, we know you feel left out because you don't have a cell phone or you don't have the latest whatever. Let's talk about why you feel that way and if that's something that's really important to you. Like,
Right,
let's talk it out instead of it being this
right.
want that you.
It's funny. In one of my finance lessons, I tell my students that my kids they don't have a cell phone, and one of them's almost going to be a teenager. They don't have cell phones, and they're not going to have a cell phone.
Mhm.
And my students go nuts when I say it. I mean, it's they just go absolute bonkers. But if you talk to our kids about cell phones, they have no interest really
No, not
in
really.
having one. I mean,
They'll go Facebook's stupid,
right? I mean,
Instagram's stupid.
I don't need a phone. Why do I need a phone?
It's really just for them. It's a viewing device. I mean, they don't create any content for TikTok. They're not creating posts for
Right.
Facebook.
It's really no more than like a video game or a TV
Yeah,
to them.
yeah,
So
for our kids,
it's just a personal
right?
device.
Which even if they
that
had their
would
own,
have.
we would not be giving them free control
Oh,
over
absolutely
it. I mean,
not.
give me a break.
Absolutely not.
Now, do we want to talk about allowances? Because I know we're switching subjects here a little bit, but a lot of people get allowances, and we don't give our kids allowances.
No, they are allowed to live here
They're allowed to eat at our table
and eat, and we'll give them clothes and an education.
They're learning to become part of a family without the need to be paid for it. I mean, that's just our personal thought on that.
Right.
And I think that speaking of coming together and agreeing on things and being a not divided, a unified, yeah, I can't think not divided, a unified front. That is an example of that. I think that we both felt that way. That like I'm not going to pay you to do chores. You don't pay me to cook your dinner.
Right.
Like I've never really understood.
They pay you with compliments.
Sometimes,
Rarely.
very rarely. And I understand if you want to do something with teaching them the responsibility of I think that's where it comes from. I don't think it comes from people actually thinking the kids deserve
are owed money for
Right.
cutting the grass.
No, I think it comes with the the teachable moment of responsibility. But to me, I want them earning that money for someone else, not in their own home. If you want to earn your own money, you can go and sell those Satsumas. There's going to be a real estate open house down the street. Go buy some Little Debbie's and we'll deduct that from the amount that you buy. Like, I want you to learn how to actually earn money,
Right.
not to feel like
Not
you
just
are
like someone's going to give you money and then what should you do with the money?
not well. I mean, they should be performing some sort of chores. That's the typical thing
Right.
that people would do with some sort of allowance. But still, I don't feel like that is what makes someone feel like they're contributing to a family. I think that probably ultimately leads up to feeling like someone constantly is owing and
Just
like a
owes
tit
you something.
well, and like a
Right.
tit for tat kind of a thing. Like, well, I took out the trash and when they get married someday, I don't want it to be like, well, I took out the trash and I did the dishes. What have you done today? We've already talked about this. It's 100 and 100%.
Right.
It's not 50-50. It's 100-100.
Right.
And how does that end up perpetuating as they go down the line? So we think a lot about that kind of stuff. How what we're doing now in a really small way, what does that turn into as an adult? How does that manifest in an older
and I
person?
think the other thing, and the other reason I do assign them a lot of jobs, I was assigned a lot of jobs when I was a kid. Side story. Every Saturday,
Story time with Thomas.
every Saturday at my house, I have 3 brothers. My sisters didn't do any work, and if they're listening, they know.
It's a sore subject. Has been
It's
for
a
4
very,
years.
very sore subject. But every Saturday, my dad would gather the 4 boys up and say, "I got 4 jobs," and he really only had like two in his head.
Mm-hmm.
So who wants job number one? Everybody wanted job number one because it was an actual job.
You all learned.
It was cut the grass.
You learned quick.
It was wash the cars.
And
By
you
the
wanted
time
that
he
job.
got to job 3 or 4, I mean, he was just, I don't even know where he came up with this stuff. It's just bizarre stuff. I really do believe that I learned, that's how I learned how to work.
Sure.
You were given a job and you were going to do the job. And when we were done, there
But
was
again-
always this,
Inspection?
yes.
Okay. Well, that is going back to what we were talking about, which is ultimately to discipline children and to make them disciplined humans, right? Because probably wherever I thought we were going with disciplining your kids was like, do you spank? Do you not spank? Do you put them in the corner?
Yeah,
do
we're
you
not
put them in
talking about
timeout? We're not talking about that. We're talking about the actual discipline of work ethic. And in order for them to do that, it takes disciplined parents
Right.
to come behind them and make sure that they're doing
they
it
did it
right.
right.
And if they don't, to keep at them until they do.
Yes.
And it is exhausting.
That is a relentless job. You know, getting back to the parenting is relentless.
That
That is
if there is
so
one
tiresome.
bit of advice and one thing that you should know about parenting, it is that telling or teaching a child how to do something takes so much repetitive action and motion
Yeah.
to where you're so tired of telling them that eventually you just do it yourself or you don't correct it. And it's like the 1,000,001th time that they'll do it on their own and they'll fly.
Right.
And it's so tiring getting to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, so just know that. Like you're doing
I
it
do
right.
feel-
It's worth being tired. It's worth
Yes.
all of it it doesn't feel like it when you're in it because you're
Yep.
like, they're never going to learn. They're never going to get there. And then they finally do. And it's like, oh my gosh, it only took a quadrillion times.
Yeah, I do feel like, you know, all the littlest one doesn't do the dishes yet, but the older three kind of do. One of them does it right. So I feel like we've made some progress. I can assign that one child that job, and it will
Yes.
get done to my satisfaction.
Yes, but we have one child who's basically the cleanest kid ever and wants everything to be neat and
Yeah.
tidy all the time. That's his
Sure.
personality.
Sure.
So you're not going to have
So
that
that
with every
helps.
kid.
I mean, that does help, but
Yes.
I do feel like if on Saturday that is always his job because I know it's going to get done to my satisfaction, and I'm not going to have to come behind him a whole lot.
Now,
And
when they get to be adults and they have their own children, they may go the absolute opposite
oh
direction.
yeah, he might hate that, and so he's not.
not
Gonna
even necessarily him. He likes it. I think he
Right.
naturally likes it. I think it'll be the other ones who hate it so much. I will fully be prepared for them to have like crazy dirty houses when they get older and be complete hoarders because of the way that we like
You know, you say that,
we're
but
messing up our kids no matter what we do.
I could tell you the four of us boys hated that Saturday. Boys, I got 4 jobs, and you hear my grandfather out there ripping a chainsaw open, and you're like, "Oh Lord, this is not going to be a good day." Like you hated it,
Yeah.
but I would not raise our kids any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned the value of work
That's you
doing
though.
that.
You might have siblings.
I would bet
and
the other
I might
3
have
would agree.
siblings. Okay.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong,
You
but
got one brother that doesn't have any kids at all, so he's out.
Right.
There's only 3 y'all left to make
Yeah.
choices.
so we'll see. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All right, well, that'll finish up, but we will take a break and come back with a question from one of our viewers.
Welcome back to Building Aaronsburg. I'm going to read our viewer question.
I'm ready.
Listener
ready for
question.
my question.
Okay. Do you guide your kids on who to be friends with, or do you let them choose their own?
I would say that we give them advice about picking your friends, you know, kind of,
You can pick your nose and you can pick your seat. What's the saying?
no, you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. You definitely don't want to be picking your seat and your nose,
Coronavirus.
and then your friend's seat and nose. Yikes. Anyway, I would say we give them advice.
I think when you teach your kids to be kind children, they want to be friends with. They don't want to be friends with jerks. I mean, I think that's probably a little more applicable as they get older than it is at a
at
younger
their current age.
I
And
don't know.
I'll say this too. We are very fortunate to be in this position, but I teach high school. That is really like the high school age is where you kind of worry about the friends they're picking and the
Yeah.
groups they're hanging out with. So I teach at the high school that they're going to attend,
He has
most
his
likely.
he has his eyes on everybody.
Yes, I have my fingers on the pulse of
That's right. And you
that
also
school.
coach the teams at their school, so you know the kids that
Right.
are they're in their class with. I don't know that our kids have ever had friends. I don't know. We let them figure it out. They're smart kids.
Right.
They can figure it out. If you're teaching them the ethics and the the good things they need to know, usually they can figure it out pretty quick.
Right.
If
So
that person doesn't quite fit, you know. But I do think that if they don't figure it out on their own, that asking questions that makes them think, like thought-provoking questions, are better than telling a kid that they can't hang out
I
with
do
somebody.
think that's probably the worst thing you can do. If you tell your child you can't hang out with that person, that's not going to go
That's
well.
exactly where it's going to go,
Yeah,
directly to
they're
hanging
gonna
out with them.
They'll do the opposite just because they're kids.
But at the same time, there's a fine line between getting way too up in your kid's business.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on, especially if they're little kids. I mean, we're not
Right.
talking
It's
about
really, and when they're little kids, there's so many fewer friends to choose from. I
Yeah.
mean, you have the 20-something kids in your class
Yeah.
probably. You get into high school,
it
there's
opens up a
now
little bit.
several hundred kids in your school. You're playing sports, and so you're meeting other people from all these different sports. So there's just, you go to college, there's even wider group of
It's the
people to choose
scariest
from.
thing for me.
So
Scary to think
I
about.
think you're right though. You teach them how to find the right qualities in people. Really the only issue we've had in respect to friends we had when one of our children was in first grade. She was trying to be friends with this girl that was just being really awful to her.
Yeah.
And you had to have had the conversation. That does not seem like something I was qualified to handle at the time. Of, why do you want to be friends with this person when they don't treat you so nice?
Yeah. And I've had the conversation pretty frequently about mean girl type stuff, and if that girl's being mean to you, then something's going on.
Right.
So be considerate. And then sure enough, it didn't take but a couple weeks, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that she blah blah blah, her dad, just lost his job, or her grandpa just died, or whatever
Right.
it was, and she was just lashing out at whoever was closest. And what's interesting about kids, especially the ones at least in the schools that we go to, they know the same kids from kindergarten through 8th grade for the most part. Some kids might change back and forth, but they end up being like sisters. And you know that you will do some ugly things to your siblings that you would never do
Right.
to
Because
a
you'll
common
still be
stranger.
friends at the end of the day.
You just have to deal with each other. You're in the same class.
Right.
There's no choice. You don't get to choose your sisters. You also don't get to choose your classmates.
Right.
And so you're with them for so long, so many days and weeks and years, that you become, they're just the people that are there. And so you don't mind lashing out at those people and being ugly to them. So if something bad's going on at home, then you come to school and have no issue, lashing out at the girl who is there every day, and she's going to have to be there tomorrow. So why, no big deal.
It's nothing personal. It's just, you're just there.
Yeah, it feels personal.
Right.
So I try to go in the back door of trying to teach our kids to have thick skin, and that it's not about them. Most of the time, it's not about them.
Right.
It's the same kind of ridiculousness that I experience with comments on YouTube or social media or whatever. I get ugly comments all the time, and all I can do is feel bad for the person who took the time to read my content or watch my video or whatever, and then comment about it.
Right.
It does not hurt
Take
my
the
feelings.
time out of their day.
Yeah, it's sad.
To formulate a comment.
And as I'm saying that, I know people in their ears are hearing, she's just saying that because she has to say that to make herself feel better. No, guys, I really believe that. Thomas can tell you, when a mean comment comes in, I just am like, it does not bother me whatsoever in the least.
Yeah, you post a lot of them to your own social media.
Yeah, I share
later.
them.
Yeah.
And I'm not sharing them so that people will be nice to me about it. Usually people will comment back what I should comment to them, because I'm not snarky enough to really have good comebacks.
Right.
And so
I I definitely am. Like that could be my full-time job. I could sit
Snark.
there and comment.
Your your comeback to trolls are so like math teacher. It's hilarious. They're like real logical statements. The last one that I did, they had a grammatical error, and so I just corrected their grammar and put a star next to it. You know, like you
Yeah.
would do if you were correcting your own grammar. So that was fun. I liked that one the best because all I did was write one word with a star next to it to correct the grammar, and
Right.
that was it.
And
So
so that's what you got to teach your kids to do. I
have a
mean,
thick skin, you know. Now we're talking about keeping friends, which is a little different, I guess. But I do think it's important. I mean, just with everything else we've been talking about, teaching them the values and making sure their values are strong and that one kid in their class isn't going to make or break the rest of their lives and their
yeah, there'll be
friendships.
plenty of other people.
My mom used to
make
always
friends
tell
with.
me, you don't have to be friends with everyone, but you need to be friendly to everyone.
Very, very wise
Isn't
advice. It is. I like that.
Glenn is wise.
Yeah,
You don't have to be friends with everyone, but you need to be friendly to everyone.
it's a good way to live for sure.
Kindness, man, wins every time.
Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to subscribe.
Yep. We're on Facebook at buildingaaronsburg.com. We're on Instagram at buildingaaronsburg.com. And if you have construction stories, family stories, anything that we've been talking about, building your house story. Did I say construction stories?
Say
Yes.
construction stories.
Building a business stories, any great, funny, exciting stories, we want to hear them. And you can email us at buildingaaronsburg@gmail.com. Until next time, we'll see y'all. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. This is strictly our
Opinion.
advice. Do not take this to the grave. Do not raise your kids the same way we did necessarily. Welcome back to our parenting episode.
I don't know why I sliced you laugh. Why are we doing it?
Welcome back to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. I really struggled to say the word Aaronsburg, and it's my last name, so we'll try that again.
Is there some cookie dough ice cream in the freezer?
There is some.
Okay.